You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are The Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Perfect day to have her here, too.
That's right, Miss Angela Rye.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You know we're doing something that you love, which is raising money for black people.
Yes.
Okay, with the Gathering for Justice organization, Harry Belafonte's nonprofit, and we're raising money for the Women's March. You donate to them all the time.
I donate to the Gathering for Justice.
Oh, you donate? Oh, you donate to Gathering for Justice?
Yeah.
Okay. And
That means you don't listen to nothing.
no, I do. Colin Kaepernick's Know Your Rights Camp and the Justice
awesome.
League. Yes.
So congrats on being woke enough to work woke. I think is really, really important. We talk all the time about how our organizations don't have the funding they need to really thrive. Yet we know that given in the day and age we're in, it's far more important now than it has ever, well, maybe not ever been, but at least since the 1960s.
Yes.
To really support our organizations so that they can do the work that we desperately need them to do.
Yeah, Will I Am donated $50,000 this morning.
50,000.
50,000.
Don't hit that finger though, because I just cut it. But yeah.
He called and donated 20, and then he was like, "No, this is big. This is Harry Belafonte. This is Colin. This is the Women's March. He donated 50,000.
50,000.
I love it.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So what else should we know right now? What's going on?
Oh my God, there's so much going on. So first of all, I think it's important for people to know as much as Donald Trump promised during the election, he's not been able to accomplish that much on his agenda. One of the things that he's now pushing is tax reform. And the reason why they are like all guns blazing, really trying to get this done is because there's a special election happening in Alabama. And now that looks pretty sketchy. We can get into that a little bit more later. But tax reform, they really, really want it done within the first couple of weeks in December. Here's the big problem. This tax reform plan for us does nothing. And by us, I mean folks who are middle class, rising middle class, or folks who aren't necessarily in the high millions, right?
So what does it mean? How much money, though? What is like?
So they're only tax cuts for the most part for millionaires and billionaires, and they are pushing a reform in this bill that would cut another critical piece. What?
Why are you looking at it like that?
I know, I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with his face.
No, I'm saying so they cutting taxes for people who.
Hold on.
Who make high millions.
Here's the point that you need to know. Oh, you excited about that?
No,
I'm just listening.
He's trying to say he makes in the high millions.
Nothing.
Oh, yeah, he's trying to tell you he's rich.
Nothing. No,
He
I'm
thinks
not.
he's getting
I'm
a tax
listening.
break.
I am
okay.
listening. I'm not saying anything.
Anyway, I don't know that Chewy would even make this cut. So here's the point. They are now going after the Obamacare mandate, right, which would give them what they call a pay-for. It's a pay-as-you-go plan. It was a law that was passed some time ago to ensure that for everything that the government has to pay for, something else gets cut. It's a way to ensure that the deficit doesn't increase substantially over time. I know that's very in the weeds, but to get rid of the mandate, right, helps Trump yet again undo some part of President Obama's legacy.
Gotcha.
That particular part is the linchpin to Obamacare and is the thing that allows it to thrive. If people are not forced or mandated in some way to purchase health care plans, that means the sickest of Americans are holding up the system, and that means for sure their premiums will rise. Right. So here, yet again, they're supposed to be just working on tax reform, still going after Obamacare. And they haven't learned
Somehow.
that it's always an epic fail.
I saw there's also going to be issues for people who are buying homes, for first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
As well, and being able to afford your mortgages and taxes on that also.
Absolutely. And one other thing that the Republicans are doing is they're like, how would you like it if you could just do your tax returns on a simple postcard and send it back in? It's so much more than that, right? I think a number of people, even though they don't, or we don't like the process, there are deductions, right, that are in play to ensure that we make some of the money back that we pay the government. And when all of that's gone because you wanted to simplify the process so that rich people could get the deductions, I think that people wouldn't look at that.
It's weird because I would think if you're rich and you get tax cuts and it's helping the middle class, it's helping the poor, why wouldn't you be for that?
Have you ever heard of greed?
That's very true.
Yeah. So I think it's just that simple. Like, people often look out for themselves, and I think even at the cost of people that they know are struggling far more than them.
Now,
what's the start, though? What's the start for the tax cuts, though? Like, how much you got to make a year?
Why are you so...
I'm just asking questions. I just want to know.
You look it up. Okay. But what I do know right now is that based on where they are, it's high millions. Like, this is the top 1% in the country.
Oh, so like the billionaires.
Yeah,
then,
it's
100
mostly
millionaires.
Yeah.
Okay.
Billionaires.
Now you were talking about the
You all right now?
elections coming up
Yes, I am. Fine.
in Alabama in
Yes.
particular.
How dare they?
Let's definitely talk about that. One thing too, though, is Jeff Sessions just testified on Capitol Hill on Tuesday to go correct his story yet again for the third time about his involvement with Russia and how much he knew during the election.
So we can impeach him now.
Hold on, not so fast.
Sorry.
But Jeff Sessions had to go back to the Hill and say, oh, you know what? On second thought, I do remember having this meeting with this George Papadopoulos guy. Of course, he's the one who was indicted and then has given a lot of information to help them
Webster's
kind of
daddy.
uncover what's really happening. It's definitely not Webster's daddy. That would be fake news. But Jeff Sessions also met twice with Kislyak, who is a Russian ambassador. He met with him during the RNC, the Republican National Convention, and also in his Senate office. And he forgot about both of those during his
So he
confirmation
didn't lie, he
hearing.
just forgot.
He just
Allegedly,
forgot.
yeah. He said a number of times, like, oh, I don't recall. But it's so interesting how he recalled everything, particularly that he didn't encourage this meeting with George Papadopoulos and the Russians. So
Well, just to play white devil's advocate, he
Sure,
is 100
like
years
doing
old.
he's not 100 years old, even though he looks like it. And
He remembered everything else.
but
everything.
because Jeff Sessions did vacate, Angela, to your point about this special election, because he did vacate this Senate seat in Alabama, there's a special election that is slated to take place on December 12th.
Okay.
And that is between two candidates. It's Roy Moore, who is the Republican, and Doug Jones, who's a Democrat. Doug Jones is the same Democrat who prosecuted two former Klansmen for their role in the bombing at the church in Alabama of the 4 little girls.
Wow.
So for us, like we just said, right, we said, wow, he's a hero to us.
Yeah.
Right.
To them, they're like, well, damn it. Like, they don't, this is like, it's like a stain on his record or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
in addition to being a Democrat.
And
That
Roy
is-
Moore is the one who's banned from the mall for soliciting
I was getting
teenage
ready to go
girls.
there. And so Roy Moore, though, they really like. This is someone who they say, well, he's been like that, as long as they've known him as an adult. He's always gone after young women. In Alabama, the age of consent is 16, and there are some states, there are 31 states that have that as the age of consent, but it normally is for a year and a half, somebody that's a year and a half older than you. 16 is the age of consent, period, in Alabama. And Roy Moore took full advantage of that, including an incident with a 14-year-old girl.
My goodness.
So basically, if R. Kelly was a politician, he'd
In
be
Alabama.
he'd be Roy Moore.
And yeah, maybe. I don't know if Roy Moore's peed on anyone, but
Gotcha.
what
Allegedly.
we do,
Well, I guess we've seen it.
we don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I saw the tape.
Oh, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Okay.
So are we any closer to impeaching
No,
this
hold on
president?
1 second, though. Roy refuses to drop out, though.
Yes.
Yeah, he's not
Okay.
dropping
So
out, no.
this, I'm glad you said that. Here's the crazy thing. He was at a revival on Tuesday night in Alabama, which let me tell you, as a political strategist, that's brilliant because 35% of Alabamans are evangelicals, right? 40% of evangelicals recently polled said that since the accusations, the sexual harassment, the sexual misconduct allegations, they're more likely to vote for this dude.
Why, though?
Well, I don't know, but this is
That's
the part that's
crazy.
crazy to me. So whoever's working on his campaign is smart enough to say, let's send him to the church. He's talking about, he used his Second Chronicles where he's talking about if you turn from your wicked ways. So I'm like, maybe it's like a form of redemption. But in this same speech at this revival, he's like, they're coming after me, the media. We need to send God to the Capitol. Now, I'm hoping he doesn't think that he's like God embodied or
Oh,
whatever.
himself God. We need to say God,
Maybe.
meaning me.
But the idea
scary.
of being redeemed in front of this crowd was like, it was astonishing to me. Like, it was smart tactics because maybe he's in some way kind of asking for forgiveness. But the fact that so many of their voters are evangelicals and so many more of them were willing to vote for him after the accusations, I think it speaks volumes about where they are.
Do you think
particularly when it comes to Democrats?
You think it's because, he's a flawed person, but he prayed for forgiveness, so he'll be okay?
Yeah, like they're like, oh, it happened so long ago. And the worst part is just like how we start normalizing Trump and, we kind of blow off envy every time he's like, well, are we closer to impeachment? Over time, your conscience gets hardened and you're like, oh, well, we knew that already. So there's no shock factor. There's no wow.
Everybody's like,
about
yeah, it
that.
was an open secret here.
That's
He was
right.
banned.
Nope.
He comes to the high school football games.
That's right.
He tries to meet young girls all the time. It's just everybody knows.
Everybody
Just
knows.
like
Nobody's
R. Kelly used to
blowing
be at
me
the
off, first
McDonald's
of all.
all the time.
Nobody's blowing me off, all right, first of all.
Well, no, I'm saying,
Second of
but
all-
I'm saying we're like, so like, I know. And then I wanted that to be the case.
Right. Are we any closer?
So I don't know. What I'll tell you is, they have introduced more impeachment articles. Democrats in the House. I think that if there is any there with the Mueller investigation on Russia and there is some way that Donald Trump is implicated, yes, we're closer.
Okay.
But you still have to rely on Republicans who like the power. They are in control of the executive branch. They're in control of the House of Representatives. They're in control of the Senate. They have to want that power so much that they're willing to turn a blind eye to what is right. And so far, we've seen them do that. I mean, to the extent that with this same tax bill, Medicaid would get cut. Who cuts health care for poor people? Right? So it's just like, I don't really know where their values are, and I don't know that they know where their values are.
Or people who want poor people dead will cut health care for poor people.
No,
Yeah. Or don't care.
or people who don't care because it doesn't apply to them.
Doesn't
That's
affect
right.
them, right?
That's
What
right.
happened to the goddamn investigation?
Which investigation?
Remember they impeached a couple of the, I'm not impeached, indicted a couple of the people that was close to his campaign, his former campaign manager and stuff. Like, what happened with that?
It's still going. That's what we just were talking about with the George Papadopoulos piece. That's the meeting that Jeff Sessions didn't remember that he had, that then he remembered he had and told the guy he shouldn't do the meeting.
And wasn't Jeff Sessions, isn't he guilty of lying under oath?
He said he didn't recall.
You can't do that, can you? You can't take.
So he actually did say he did not meet with Kislyak the first time. So
Okay.
he did perjure himself, but there's no illegality in that. They could say, they could question his nomination as a result of that, but there's nothing illegal about that. He didn't lie. He didn't lie to the FBI. If in some way he lied to the FBI and we find out about that, that is obstruction of justice. That's illegal. But him perjuring himself before the Senate is.
Now,
It's
what do
damning.
you think about how in Congress there's people that are serving in Congress who actually have been settling cases of sexual harassment and sexual assault, and that information is not disclosed, but they're still able to keep their jobs and pay these settlements out of taxpayer dollars?
Well, I mean, there are a number of issues with this. Congresswoman Jackie Speier just testified before the House Administration Committee on this very issue on Monday, and it's frustrating, but what I think is more maddening is that we treat politicians with sexual harassment allegations any different than we would industry-wide.
Right.
Like, we've seen it now in Hollywood. It happens in every single industry.
Has it
And
ever
so-
happened to you?
No,
Not at all.
never.
Can you
And-
imagine it?
No.
And you think Angela
I thought maybe
Rye would
somebody
be
might
quiet
try
about
one
that?
time and
Are you
she,
you think
People-
Angela Rye would be quiet about that?
Maybe
well,
not.
what I will say to you, and maybe this would surprise you, is there have been members of Congress who've been very inappropriate, like they've said inappropriate things, but I've chin checked it, and I didn't report it because to me it's just like if you're used to using your power, whether you're a corporate executive where that's happened to, or you're in a position of and it's never been one of my supervisors, thank God, but somebody who thinks that their power gives them the right to say whatever they want, even if it's a dude while you're walking down the street and they think they own the block.
Right.
Like, you just have to chin check it. And thankfully, I'm grateful that I have the courage to do that, whatever area, whatever venue.
That's why so many men have normalized it though, because they have had no consequences for it.
Yeah. No,
You
that's
know?
true.
But
And
there's also a lot of women who have come forward and nothing's happened, or
Yeah,
they've
they're not
been
believed.
blackballed, or that happens a lot too when women do come forward with their stories.
Yeah, and I think that's a part of it. I think if I'm guilty of anything on the Hill, I think that it's been normalized to the point where you're like, oh, we just know who the dirty old men are. Like,
You're
stay
like, just
away
get
from
out of here,
so-and-so.
get away from me.
Stay away from so and so.
Right.
Don't talk to so and so. Ask so and so about his wife, and so he know. Like, there are just, but I think that we do that in every single space. I don't think it's unique to the Hill. We
Oh, no,
talk-
absolutely.
So I don't really know. And then I think the other thing that's really resonated with me since a lot of these sexual harassment stories started coming out, both on the Hollywood side and this side meaning the political side, is my story's not big enough, right? Like, you just said something to me, that's nothing to really report. Like, stuff happens every day that's worse. And maybe that is me being just as guilty as them by not saying something, because it is just like, oh, it's just verbal. I just slapped him back. It's good.
It's true. It's funny you said that, because I was having that conversation with somebody this week, because I think Eddie Hung came out with a story where he said he was at a camp or something and a guy pulled his penis out in front of him. And they wrote this whole op-ed on it. And I'm like, you're kind of like, I mean, it's bad, but it's not as bad as everything else we're hearing. So did you really need a whole op-ed?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the answer to that. What I can tell you is I think, like, from a biblical standpoint, like, we talk about categorizing sin, and it's not like there's no worse sin. But honestly, I feel like there are some stories that are far worse, and those people do need that platform to be able to tell that, one, so that they can be emotionally set free, and two, I think because people need to know that these things happen. I mean, I think we all know that men say women say inappropriate things to men too. I think that we shouldn't make it so that it's just men who are the sexual harassers. Women do it too. It's just not as prevalent, I think.
Now we're talking to Angela right now. Donald Trump was in China.
Yes.
And he saved these 3 young black boys. That
Allegedly.
were China,
We don't know if he saved them. He made a call.
But what did you think about that? Why do you think he did? Because I seen that as odd for the president to help anybody, truthfully.
I think he needs a PR fix right now. Also, while he was overseas, he tweeted about Kim Jong-un being fat, short and fat, like on Twitter. So it's like for every positive thing that he could receive positive press on, he does something dumb or distracting. And I just start to wonder, like, if it's on purpose or if he really can't help himself. And I'm certainly leaning towards the latter.
So if Donald Trump calls us today and says he wants to donate $1 million,
you know he is not calling you.
It's not going to
to the
happen.
Gathering for Justice.
But if he did,
do we take the money?
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah, you take the
Take
money.
from the rich and give to the poor.
Yes,
I
you
ain't
take
mad
the
at
money.
that.
But he's not calling you.
No.
He ain't checking for you.
No, he's
Nope.
not. No.
And he might not have $1 million. Donald Trump has been embellishing how much he's worth for a long time.
You don't think Trump got $1 million?
Yeah, he probably
got $1
does.
million.
Yeah, he got $1
But I
million.
was just making a joke.
Why don't you tweet
about
him and
him
ask him?
embellishing.
No. Now, why do
He
you
might
think?
be blocked. Are you blocked?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Why do you think it's important to empower these organizations like the Gathering for Justice? Because you said you've been donating to them for a while.
Well, I think this goes into something that we started, or we didn't really start it, but I think we really amplified it starting last year after the election, which was this Buy Black, Give Black, Bank Black 3-pillared campaign. And I think that it's the Give Black portion. Black folks are some of the most philanthropic people in the world, but just more often than not, our donations are going to our churches every Sunday, and that's not bad for you to auto debit from your bank account to give your tithes to your church. However, I think that we need to have a more robust strategy in our giving. Again, whether we're talking about national organizations like the Gathering for Justice and Know Your Rights Camp, there are so many organizations in our communities doing hard work every day, whether it's stopping gun violence or addressing teenage pregnancy or working on educational systems that we know are not equal. They're doing that work every day. And they could use the extra hands for volunteerism. They could use the extra donations to ensure that they can keep their doors open, hire more staff, have more supplies. We have to start believing and actually internalizing that we help ourselves better than anyone else can help us.
We all we need. So how much can we expect from Impact Strategies? You
don't have to say an amount, Angela. You don't have to say an amount.
Unless you want
But
to.
I know
You don't have to tell
Angela's
us the number.
You just started with, I donate to these people.
Right, she donates
every
already
time
anyway.
with the shirts. Like,
I need you to donate today, though.
Today.
I
is very
will
important.
donate today.
All you gotta
Okay.
do is text change to 52182.
Or go to BC Change.
52182.
That's
Do you
all.
have a tweet I can post today too, or something on my
I got a
social?
flyer.
You have
Yep.
a
I'm gonna send you
graphic.
the flyer right now.
And the money
Okay, I'm gonna
goes straight
put
to
that up.
Gathering for Justice.
Yes.
We don't touch it, so it goes
Right.
straight there.
Absolutely.
Or
I'm happy to do it.
Change, the number 4change.com. And we appreciate you for stopping by all the time and coming through.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
All right. Well, there you have it. It's Miss Angela Rye. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.